Burzum. You cannot pass. I am the secret servant of the fire of Odin.
What the fuck am I talking about?
Let's find out.
Let's find out.
Let's find out. Let's find out.
Let's find out.
Let's find out. Let's find out.
Let's find out.
Burzum, or as we're supposed to pronounce it,
Burzum,
is by far the most interesting black metal, or as Varg would say, heavy metal band of the Norwegian scene. There's so much interesting controversy, so many interesting characters, so many good and terrible albums, and so much controversy that Burzum is just soaking with attention. Every Burzum album sounds different from each other, unless of course they're ambient albums, because Burzum, or should I say Burzum, went from black metal then to ambient synth music, and then to black metal again, back to ambient synth music, or as the true cult edgelords refer to it as dungeon synth. Burzum is a band led by one man, the myth, the legend, Varg Vikernes, or Vikernes, I don't really care. He's also known as Count Grishnak. Now Varg, our Uncle Dad, says that his music was very much inspired by the role-playing games that he would play, or the mythical storytelling books like Lord of the Rings, that this was the music that he thought of and tried to craft when he played these games or read these books. But before he made Burzum, or should I say Burzum, he was in a couple other projects. He was actually in a death metal band for a time called Old Funeral, which actually had Abath and Demon-As Doom Occulta from Immortal, which goes to show that the underground black metal scene was so small that literally everyone knew each other and was in bands with each other. But Count Griffin Snatch decided to do something else. He decided he was going to make a solo project, something that every other ambient black metal band would rip off, which is of course doing everything by themselves and ripping off Burzum's sound, or should I say Burzum. The original logo for the band that was made about in like 1990 something looked pretty badass, pretty scary, but then like every other band, he just decided to rip off Bathory's logo with the old English text. He made a couple demos which would circulate around the black metal scene. It caught the attention of a lot of big hitters in the black metal scene because they were so raw, so original. It especially caught the attention of Austan Arseth, I think his name is pronounced, something in Norwegic, but his nickname of course was Euronymous. And it is this point in this video I say go and watch the Mayhem retrospective already. So Varg was introduced to what would become the black metal scene, a bunch of edgy teenagers that worshipped Venom and wanted to play extremely raw and to play evil metal that was the opposite of Scott Burns' death metal style. And speaking of Scott Burns, Euronymous' label, Death Like Silence, which would actually produce the first Burzum album, I believe had some sort of logo thing that was like Scott Burns with a cross through him. And Euronymous even owned his own record store, which I believe is how they met. But the store was never really popular at all. However, Burzum is very different from a lot of these other black metal bands that were forming at the time, especially Mayhem, which are all about being raw, evil, and satanic and worshipping Venom before them, with the exception of ripping off Bathory, which is what everyone did at the time. Varg decided to go for a completely original approach that he describes as not even really black metal. I mean, sonically it's similar, the riff styles are similar, the production is absolutely god-awful, sounds like you stuck your goddamn guitar through a beehive. The lyrics to his songs were a lot deeper, had a lot more meaning to them, and were telling stories based on mythical fantasy and Norwegian old pagan ideas. And Varg actually disliked Venom, which was kind of a big no-no at the time, so he was kind of an outsider within the scene and no one else knew it. But who would have guessed that Uncle Dad, Varg, would turn black metal upside down and progress it into so many other directions that Euronymous, the current leader of the black metal scene at the time, would never be able to do. So what do I think of Burzum? Varg Vikernes, Euronymous, the controversy, the murders.
Let's find out.
So the first album, Burzum,
Burzum.
was released in 1992, and the artwork is actually similar to the second album, Det Som Engang Var, because it's actually a zoomed-in picture of the Det Som Engang Var album cover, which I believe is actually a discolored photocopy of some role-playing game cover. This album showcases a very unique, melodic, atmospheric black metal vibe on every song. The riffs are excellent, the performances are very tight, everything played by Varg, but it showcases a really, really unique style that would be absolutely worshipped in the atmospheric black metal scene that would come later on, and the depressive suicidal black metal scene, which is just screaming. Yes, instead of doing your typical croaks and caws, Varg Vikernes does a blood-curdled scream on the first 3 Burzum albums, which makes his early stuff kinda hard to get into, especially for me, because it's just like, dude, this dude is just screaming into my eardrums. But it's always an acquired taste, and this album is quite the fine wine. And even though it sounds like crap, I actually really adore the production of this album. The amazing soundscapes and melodic music just bleeds through that horrible wasp nest of production. My favorite song is Eel, Lord of Depths. And a second favorite, of course, is the epic A Lost, Forgotten, Sad Spirit. And speaking of long songs, Varg always, when he would make black metal albums, wrote really long songs that you could argue were too long and too repetitive. But this early stuff was actually kind of progressive. The riffs changed quite a bit. This is the era when black metal was simplistic sonically, but not musically. The most interesting song on this album is easily War, which a lot of people say is a total rip-off of Necromancy from Bathory, which, yeah, the riffs are pretty damn similar, but I like both of them. The intro is absolutely hilarious in this song. It's always been a debate on what the hell Varg is saying, because it sounds like he's saying, DC's ha wow, or ha war, and people are always like arguing what the hell it is.
This is war. Wow.
Which is weird though, because it sounds like he's saying war or wow, not both. So I don't know what the fuck. In 1993, we have Det Som Engang Var, which means what once was. The early Burzum black metal albums were all actually recorded around the same time, but were released years apart, which is especially the case with Filosofem, because we recorded that a couple of years before it was released. But back to Det Som Engang Var, there's less songs on it. There's a lot more like interludes and instrumentals and stuff like that. There's only really 4 complete songs, but all the interludes, all the instrumental bits, all the cool ambient stuff, all the actual songs, it's all very excellent. He Who Traveled is easily my favorite ambient Burzum song, and Lost Wisdom is for me the best on the album. Just amazing riff after amazing riff. But I also gotta give credit to the epic conclusion to the album, Turn the Sign of the Microcosm. (1994's) however you pronounce that in Norwegian, but in English, American speak, it's If the Light Takes Us. is a black metal classic, and to me is probably the best Burzum album. Var goes balls to the wall with simplistic music and simplistic delivery, but gives us an incredible array of music that some could argue probably goes on for a little too long, but it's incredible how he takes a 14-minute song, What Once Was, which is weird because that's basically the title track of the last album. I hate it when bands do that. But he takes that song, makes it 14 minutes, makes it rather repetitive and simplistic, but changes it up enough to where it keeps you drawn into the song because it's so catchy and so repetitive, but not being too repetitive. There's only 4 songs in this album, the other 3 being If the Light Takes Us, which is the second song. Absolutely incredible snowy atmosphere to this one. And then my favorite song on the album, Into the Castle from the Dream, which has an incredible fast pace to it. Now, the most interesting song on the album, the one that I used to hate, and one that will definitely be a grower for a lot of people. Now, if you've already gotten to black metal at this point, songs like Tom Head are going to be a hard pill to swallow because this is 14 minutes of ambient synth, or as the true cult hipsters call it, dungeon synth. 14 minutes of it, and it really has only 3 movements, but I've grown to really love the dark, creepy, and then beautiful atmosphere of the song. This song is very much one of the most grower songs I've ever heard, and one of the best black metal albums and most unique black metal albums I've ever heard. It not only stands as a defining album of the genre, but it's a defining album of what black metal should be. People like Euronymous wanted to keep it true and cult and stupid, but with albums like this, Varg wanted it to be different. He wanted it to be melodic. He wanted it to be completely unpredictable. But so many bands after this point were inspired by stuff like this. Some that you wouldn't even really expect. Stuff like Tak is kind of inspired by the style that Varg tried to do around this era. Stuff like Passage to Hiver is basically Burzum ripoff. And then even third wave black metal bands that people either absolutely love or absolutely hate, you gotta give credit to Burzum because I believe they were highly inspired by Varg's work. And you could argue that this album single-handedly started both the depressive suicidal black metal genres that would be explored by Leviathan and Zastor, which both sound identical to Varg's blood-curled ambient style of this album, or even ambient black metal, which is completely a ripoff of this style. So any way you slice it, this album is important and should definitely be checked out. Now, in 1993-94, shit hits the fan for Burzum and the entire black metal scene. Not only do a bunch of events lead to black metal becoming a bad word and getting extreme notoriety, people getting arrested, things getting destroyed, people getting killed, but black metal, a very, very minute genre that no one really cared about outside the Norwegian scene, all of a sudden exploded all over the world. You can thank Varg for his contribution to black metal becoming a thing. And he pretty much single-handedly made black metal become a thing, even though he completely resents the entire scene and what black metal is nowadays. He's almost become the leader of it. Whether he's right or wrong for his actions are completely your opinion, and I could see both sides of the spectrum. But there's one undeniable fact, and that's that when Euronymous was killed by Varg, Varg symbolically became the leader of the scene by making it explode everywhere else. Just about every black metal band before the murder sounded very similar, had the very raw and very dark style, but when the influence and notoriety went all around the world, all of these newer bands that just started coming out started to sound very different. A lot of them were originally experimenting with death metal, but they saw this style as having a bad name and getting a lot of publicity and having a cool style to it. So everyone put in their own 2 cents and made their own amazing or terrible music. which is pretty much what Varg wanted for the Norwegian scene to begin with, considering he was so different. He was such an oddball music-wise and personality-wise that he finally got what he wanted. Now, like I said, there was a lot of controversy. You got to do a lot of your own research. I already explained a little bit of what built up to the murder of Euronymous in the Mayhem video, so go watch that video first. Go over there, it's in the link in the description.
So why exactly did these embassies of Judaism burn down en masse in Norway from 1991 to 1993 and onwards, really? Let's find out.
There was church burnings all over Norway, and black metal bands were getting blamed for it. A lot of people claim that because Varg Vikernes went on that news channel and acted scary, that he was pretty much behind the arsons. He denies this, so Varg and black metal were already getting scrutinized and getting some attention from that. And then, while Mayhem was working on the album De Mysteriis Dom Satanis, all hell broke loose when rumors spread that Euronymous was going to murder Varg Vikernes because Varg didn't want to be his friend anymore.
Killing other human beings, is it always a bad thing? Let's find out.
So word got around to just about everyone in the scene that Euronymous was going to kill Varg. So Varg pretty much preemptively striked him, went to his house, wanted to break up the contract with him, and then claimed that Euronymous ran to the other room, then stabbed him, and all this crap. So he died. And then Varg was pretty much free for a while. They couldn't figure out who was behind it. But there was a couple people that told on him, of course, so he got in trouble for the murder. And Varg claims that the police report of when he was being convicted claimed that they found evidence that Euronymous was trying to kill Varg. But then apparently the judge ruled that, well, Varg couldn't have known that Euronymous was going to kill him, so he killed him anyways. That's all a stupid mess. So Varg goes to jail in 1994, which is the final seal in the coffin to black metal becoming a huge international thing. Do I agree with Varg killing Euronymous, though? We'll get more into what I think of Varg as a person later. I could understand if Varg's story is true. I could understand why he would probably stab him in self-defense. And allegedly Euronymous was a total douchebag. I mean, just look up some of the things that happened between him and Dead before Dead killed himself, or after he killed himself. So Euronymous was a shitty person. He was horrible to black metal itself. So in that aspect, yeah, I guess it was good to kill him. It's probably the best thing that happened to black metal was Varg killing Euronymous.
This is our toilet.
But enough of the drama, let's get back to music. Filosofem came out in 1996, 2 years after Varg was imprisoned, which is pretty much like a post-hominous album, except it's post-imprisonness. He was able to get it released while he was in prison somehow. Probably was a pain in the ass to organize, considering it took 2 years. But this album takes every idea from In the Light Takes Us and makes it ridiculous in either a good or bad way, depending on how you feel about it. This album can be extremely polarizing. Every song is extremely long, all being capped off with a 25-minute synth song towards the end of the album called something in Norwegic but translated in American as Circumambulation of the Transcendental Columns of Singularity. And most of the song is pretty much bum 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 bum. I used to do nothing but make fun of this song because it's literally 25 minutes of that. But after listening to it a lot, I've actually started to realize some really interesting things. And that's that he does a lot of really cool layering with the, of course, atmospherics, the keyboards and stuff. And it actually has a pretty nice progression to it. If you're just listening to it in the background and stuff, it actually has a really, really amazing feel to it. But if you're just sitting there listening to it, you're probably going to get bored out of your mind. But it's really a grower of a song. Now, do I think it's amazing? No, it's pretty much technically awful. You're listening to 25 minutes of bum bum bum, but it's really interesting to hear how he can progress 25 minutes of bum 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 with layering musically. There's also some other boring sections like Decrepitude 1 and 2, But you could feel a lot of emotion in the riff to Decrepitude, but it's literally the same riff over and over, which is pretty much the biggest problem with this album, is that everything is so repetitive that it can be jarring. Most of these songs are literally the same riff over and over and over and over and over again, especially in Decrepitude's case, especially in the circumambulation of the transcendental columns of singularity. But the strongest moments in this album, of course, the first three classic songs. We have Burzum, which translates, of course, to darkness, or in the German version, which is weird because a lot of pressings of this album actually include German translations for songs. So you have, of course, Dunkelheit, but for me, it's just Burzum because why German makes no sense. Amazing way to start an album, one of their best songs easily. Same with Jesus Dot. My favorite song on the album, and probably my favorite Burzum song of all time, is Beholding the Daughters of Firmament. Amazing lyrics that I believe were based on a poem, and an absolutely incredibly catchy groove. Even though Varg didn't do nothing, man, he got prosecuted and arrested for a lot of the crimes that were committed in the black metal scene. Not only was he put in jail for the murder of Euronymous, but they even tried him for the fucking arsons of the churches, which apparently, as he keeps stating, he didn't even do. But apparently Euronymous did, which is really ironic. So he goes to jail, and De Mysteriis Dom Satanas or Mayhem gets released after the fact, and so does Filosofem for Burzum. Or should I say, Burzum! But that didn't stop our favorite evil Nazi murderer from recording more music in jail. But they did allow him to bring in a tape recorder and a synthesizer, which he used to record 2 albums during this era. 2 albums that people would forever label as dungeon synth. Dark ambient synth music instead of black metal. Now, I am not an ambient music guy. I hate all these annoying, boring, drawn out things, even that Burzum did, like that ridiculously long titled song in Filosofem that goes for 25 minutes. I don't like that type of stuff, okay? But I gotta say, this album is somehow a very rare exception. It doesn't really have that ambient feel to it that really annoys me, where it's just the same repeated notes over and over and over and over and over again. There's nothing more boring than listening to a whole album of "ho." But it seems like a lot of the songs in here were just Varg trying to write medieval style music, and he translated it on the keyboard, as opposed to him just writing straight up ambient stuff. And that's why I really like this album, believe it or not. Daudi Baldrs, or as it translates to The Death of Baldur, or also Baldur's Death, which is the same damn thing, is a pretty interesting album, and it's not bad. I actually quite like it, like I said. My biggest gripe, though, I must say, is that there is quite a lot of repetition, but it's not painful, but it's also not boring and music. We actually have really cool interweaving melodies that form a really creative soundscape of dungeon synth medieval music. I gotta say, easily the best song on the album is the last song, which translates to Towards Ragnarok, which is nothing but incredible interweaving of melodies and a ton of layering. You could tell that Varg put the most work into this song, but there is one horrible turd on this album that is painful repetition. Yeah, listen to Baldur's Balefire if you want to hear the exact same irritating melody over and over and over. You could tell that Varg had his keyboard setting on nails on a chalkboard when recording this song. In other words, it's the same irritating synth horn over and over and over. This is definitely the type of music that you would kill yourself to.
This is our toilet.
However the hell you pronounce that, came out in 1999, 2 years after Daudi Baldrs. Varg is still in prison, and he even tried to escape at some point. They let him out for like visitation of family, because they actually have really weird prison laws and shit in Norway. So he basically left and didn't come back. But anyways, we have a short, boring, pointless, and horrific ambient album from Varg to talk about. His last one in the prison duology, which is called Hildskialf. You fucking Norwegics and your bizarre spelling. You'd think that in this day and age, you filthy European scum could figure out how to speak American. But this album is the epitome of what I hate. The intro of the album is kind of cool, right? It's like building up cool atmosphere. It's like, oh, this is awesome. It's so dark. It's so creepy. What's next? But then you realize that whole intro of the album was 6 minutes. That's one of the songs on here. So you're like, well, that was just 6 minutes of, oh, so you're like, okay, well, what's next? And then you get nothing but about 20 or so minutes of, oh. This album is basically just 30 minutes of Varg messing around in a keyboard, holding chords for about 3 or so minutes at a time. Just absolutely nothing worth checking out. Unless you're obsessed with, oh, music, then I guess check this out. And then finally, 11 years later, Varg proves that he can write music again. That's not just, oh, because they finally let him out of prison. He made Parole in like 2009. I don't know why there was such a huge gap between that last album and 2009 from him making Parole. Maybe he just didn't care to write more. Oh! Or maybe that's when he made My Frog, his role-playing game that nobody gives a shit about. Well, this album is pretty much a throwback Burzum album, or should I say Burzum album, where it's mostly black metal, and there's even some more Viking metal touches in there. A little bit less heavy and dark as the early stuff, but it's still an excellent throwback of showing he could still do it, especially the vocals. Now, easily the biggest problem with this album, and the biggest problem with Burzum in general, or should I say Burzum, is that the songwriting is just, why? Why does everything have to be 10 minutes? Honestly, I really like just about every song on this album, but that last song, Belus Return Conclusion. By the way, this album's a concept album about some dude named Belus or something like that, but who cares? But anyways, Belus Return Conclusion is almost 10 minutes of the same annoying shit. Stop with this, dude. Seriously, write like you did back in the day where it was short songs, or if they were long, they were pretty progressive. There was a reason why they were long. But regardless, this album was a very good album and a very good step in the right direction. And we have another awesome follow-up the year after, an album called Fallen. This album is a little bit more of Viking metal, pagan metal leaning than even the last album, but it's still in the same vein of that classic style, and another classic album. Even though I think Belus is probably the better album though, I think that Fallen has the better songs on it. Even though Varg doesn't do the black metal screams on this album, his vocals are actually pretty damn good. And to be honest, I can't pick a favorite track, but there are definitely some more standout songs. Once you get towards the middle of the album is where you get the more black metal throwback songs like Fallen, Madness, Each Man to His Own. But this album isn't perfect. The weaknesses lie in the fact that some points do sound a little cartoonish with Varg's clean singing. And that last song, what is up with Varg repeating pointless garbage for ambient purposes that nobody cares about? But To Hell and Back Again isn't ambient in the oh sense, it's ambient in the let's bang something for 5 minutes sense. I don't understand how stuff like this is supposed to be artistic. I don't get it. more so autistic. This is autistic black metal.
This is our toilet.
Good God, Umskiptar, I believe it's pronounced, is complete and utter shit. One of the absolute worst albums I've ever heard, and the absolute bar none worst Burzum album ever made. And what's really disappointing is that this band has about 3 albums of and I'm saying that this album, which is a Viking metal style album, more like a pagan metal type thing, is worse. Much, much worse. The problem with this album is the songwriting and riffs are a complete mishmash of confusion. It literally sounds like at some points that the instruments are not even matched up on the same timing, and it sounds like a complete and utter mess. And on top of that, there's no energy, because all you have is Varg just softly whispering some weird shit over top of the music. This album isn't only just dull like a lot of the bad ambient albums, but it's also painful due to the absolutely horrific, and I swear to God, off-tuning. Like, seriously, was he trying to make this as bad as possible? That would be a good troll, I'm not gonna lie. Come back with 2 classic throwback style albums to what the fans love, and then just hit them with something completely awful. That would actually be funny if a band did that, and I bet you the fans would still eat it up. Like, hey man, you can't say they suck, man. You don't even make music, man. You're not a real fan if you don't like all their material. And Varg would just be sitting there, it was supposed to be terrible, you fucking idiots. Alright, let's take out 2 birds with 1 stone, or 2 towers with 1 plane, shall we?
This is our toilet. This is our toilet.
We have the last 2 albums from Burzum, because Varg has expressed that he never wants to make music anymore, or something like that. And we have 2 ambient albums, Soul Austan, or in American talk, it's Old Norse for East of the Sun, West of the Moon, and then The Ways of Yore, which is just straight into American. Now, something tells me that Varg probably also thought that last album was a total abomination, because instead of making more albums like that, he just completely went to bare bones synth music just to get as far away from that horrificness that the last album was. And what do you expect, man? If you like ambient music, you're gonna like this probably. I don't really care for any of this for the most part. I mean, there's definitely some more interesting songs, but that's the ones that probably avoid as much as possible. If I had to go which one's the better of the 2, I would maybe have to say the Old Norse of the East Sun, West of the Moon might be better, because it's less songs. But like I said, there's a really funny song on there that I've grown to really like, that Varg sings all the goddamn time in his videos, called Hail Odin. And by the way, what else really sucks about The Ways of Yore is that the last 2 songs are painfully long, but then the good side to that is that those are probably the 2 best songs of the whole thing, because they actually have time to do something other than One more interesting thing about these boring ass albums before we finally finish up this video is that a lot of people have criticized The Ways of Yore for having like swastikas around the border of the album, which I think is kind of funny, and I think he said that he did it as a joke, but I don't know. He gets a lot of flack, Varg does, for apparently being a Nazi, a National Socialist. But I believe he was only a National Socialist, or a self-proclaimed one, during his prison years. I think he even went straight up skinhead for a little bit, but he claims that he's not anymore. But you know what? Now that we're talking about, let's stop talking about this music and actually go into something even more interesting, which is his YouTube channel, which we've talked about before, the Thulian Perspective. What I'm trying to say is the guy knows he's a meme, and he completely goes along with it and even trolls people. It's fucking amazing. Showing that not only is he the king of black metal, but he's also the absolute meme lord. There's several interesting topics ranging from the white genocide to why women should get back in the kitchen with excellently titled videos like "Work, Bitch," to videos about immigration. His most popular topic and his most memed topic is his very famous videos about living the simple life. Because after he got out of prison and started making music again, he married a French woman and I believe moved to France or something like that. And they've been pretty much living in the wilderness with their kids. And a while back, both of them were actually prosecuted for alleged terrorism when the wife tried to buy some guns or something like that. Like I mentioned before, the guy has also developed and never shuts the fuck up on his channel about a role-playing game named My Frog. These videos are also drenched with hilariously cartoonish Windows Movie Maker style slides, but there's also a lot of interesting videos of him talking about his days in the black metal scene, some interesting stories, and I swear he's done 100 videos about why he killed Euronymous in self-defense. In other words, autism speaks, and its name is Thulian Perspective. You know, I must say, as much as the guy gets accused of being a psychopath and a serial killer, a murderer, and a Nazi, I can't hate him just by looking at his channel and seeing how he is normally, as opposed to how he's painted. And I mean, from what you also see in his videos, he just seems like a nerd that likes to LARP and live in the forest and repair cars and stuff like that. And he's got like a nice family and stuff. He seems like a nice dad, you know? I mean, what he says in his videos are controversial at times, but from what I've seen of Varg, I don't think he's a psychopath. I think he has very unpopular views, and I think he believes very strongly on those views. In conclusion, Burzum is at their best, or should I say Burzum is at their best when Varg dabbles into black metal. Varg has made several very good and classic black metal style albums, and has also made some horrific albums, especially in the category of oh. But most importantly, he put that degenerate commie scum Euronymous 6 feet under. That's right, he doesn't stand as the leader of black metal. In fact, in that coffin, he can't even stand at all. And honestly, all of you will eventually grow up and realize one day that your opinion doesn't matter. My opinion doesn't matter. You should stop getting triggered by other people's opinions. You should stop throwing a shit fit when I call your favorite Burzum album a big cactus pile of shit. And most importantly, that not everyone has to like your type of music or follow what you have to say. It's all about individualityism, okay? Individualityism is much more important, to be true to yourself and what you believe in, and stick by that, than to concede to one person's viewpoint, like that commie son of a bitch Euronymous wanted. But no matter what, one day, Varg will finally get away from the Nazi and the crazy murderer, and he'll even get away from his own music that he doesn't even care about anymore. Eventually he'll get away from all of it, and people will remember him for what he really did, for saving black metal and allowing it to be a free market of ideas. And for that, we will all be eternally grateful. Wait, what is this? Is this Burzum? Wait, no, Leviathan. You can't make a genre called depressive suicidal black metal. That just sounds... Wait, this is a thing? What? Could you think of something more creative to do? Slitty McKills himself? Technical black metal? Wasn't the point of black metal to be away from horrible technical death metal that's overproduced shit? Good God, full albums of sitting by the fire playing your horrible folksy music? There's no way that people can actually like this shit. There's no way this will ever be popular. What? A black metal band can de-evolve from black metal to death metal, and it's commercially successful? How could a band as successful as Darkthrone that do nothing but milk and everlasting formula like black metal go into such a horrific midlife crisis of crust punk? Oh Jesus, this band a joke? This is the epitome of everything that people make fun of in black metal. Are you kidding me? Korthon can die? Am I going insane? This is the type of bottom-feeding barnacles that Cover Killer Nation waxes cack to. Oh God, make it stop. National Socialist black metal? Since when is politics a genre? Oh god, what posers. Well, I mean, it could be worse. It could be like metalcore or something. Norsecore! Oh, geez. Satyricon? You need to lose some weight, buddy. What is this autistic black metal? Good god, the genre went popular? Dimmu Borgir? Ah, Christ, an ambient black metal band that does nothing but capitalize on the oh! Who the hell let Celtic Frost make a pop demo? Hipster black metal! Hipster black metal! I was so wrong, Varg. Ever since you were born, you had one talent that you were to exceed at till the end of time. I thought you completed your mission by killing that commie son of a bitch. But that was just the beginning. I know now that you weren't sent here to save black metal. You were here to do something much more important. For these autists can't be saved. It only grows worse. Varg, I ask you one more time to do what you do best. To once again master the art of self-defense and use your newfound skills and arsenal. Varg, finish your mission. Save the world. Save black metal. Fucking kill them all.
This is wow.
This is our toilet.
Are they turning the friggin' frogs gay? Let's find out.